Hi there, my name is Alan and welcome to Design Dummy. In this tutorial, we will be discovering the new generative AI feature inside of Photoshop. And hopefully by the time you're watching this video, this feature has already been rolled out into the new edition of Photoshop. But for the time of this demonstration, we'll be using the Adobe Photoshop beta to demonstrate how these tools work. So the first demonstration is going to be about removing objects. And as we are familiar with designers, there are a couple ways to go about that. The first one is the most obvious, which is the healing brush tool. We also have the clone stamp tool, and we also have the content aware fill, which is a more recent addition, and it's had some integration of AI and machine learning, but nothing as good as this AI that I'm about to show you. So in this photo, we have a kind of landscape city image in Greece, and we want to remove this person who's kind of walking into the distance. And how are we going to do that? The first thing we can do is select the lasso tool and simply draw around this person like so, making sure we don't miss the shadow, as typically that wouldn't exist if that person wasn't there. Just like so. And now that we have a selection, we can press the generative fill button, which is available because of this new banner that's been added into the new version of Photoshop. So if we press generative fill and simply enter the prompt remove, just like so, and then press generate, Photoshop is going to do its magic, do its calculation with AI, and remove the object for us. And as we can see, Photoshop did an incredible job and has completely just removed that person from existence. And it did such a good job because as we can see, the walls, the cobblestone, the blending of the buildings in the background, it's seamless. And we can't really tell that there was anything there beforehand. Obviously, there are a few hiccups, such as perhaps the cobblestone area here is less textured. And hopefully, if we go over this surface area, we can improve and make it even more realistic than it already is. Now, the second example I want to show you guys is filling and extending images. Now, we have this portrait image of a couple and some horses in the background, situated on a beautiful beach and seaside background. Let's just make a hypothetical scenario where this was the perfect shot and it was taken in portrait, and we missed out on this entire panoramic imagery of this beautiful environment. And so our client requested for us to extend this image using AI so they can frame it, in the house or whatever they want to do with their image. So the first thing we need to do is just select our layer, select the crop tool, and then hold Option to extend our image as so. We're going to press enter. And as we can see, we have some transparency on the left and right side of our portrait image. The next thing we need to do is take our rectangular marquee tool, select on the left side of the image, slightly overlapping on top of the portrait, and then we're going to hold Shift to create a second selection on the right side of our image as so. Once those two selections have been complete, we can then press the generative fill button. This time, we're not entering any prompts, we're simply pressing generate. Photoshop is going to load up these assets one more time. And as we can see, it just did an absolutely it's just absolutely insane what Photoshop can do. It's a kind of everyday person who's maybe not a designer would have absolutely zero idea that this, half of this image is like fake. It doesn't necessarily exist. For all we know, the beach could have ended there, but just because we're using AI, we can extend our image, and it's quite predictable in the sense that it's going to understand the image and extend it in a way which feels natural. So we have this kind of wraparound of the beach, and even some elevated areas in the background there, which just make for a very beautiful image. And if you are a photographer, this would be a very acceptable delivery to the client. It's very hard to tell there's anything wrong with it. It seems very natural. Now, the third kind of thing we are going to look at today is how we can add everyday items and just generally items from the world onto our existing photographs. Let's say you're a nature photographer and you want to add more depth to this already beautiful story, which is a family of elephants. Perhaps you want to just tell a story which captivates the audience in a different way. So one way we can do that is just by adding more animals. So what we are going to do is select the lasso tool once again, select our layer, and then draw just a very kind of normal circle, I guess, in this water here. Then we're going to press generative fill, and I'm going to type in ducks. And let's see what Photoshop can do for us. And just like that, Photoshop has added some ducks into this scene. Now, the beauty of this, the way this software function is, it gives us 3 options initially. So if we're not happy with how this render came out, we can press on this, and now we have a completely different image. So now we have like I guess an adult duck and some babies. We can even go a little bit further, and then we have a different angle. I particularly like number 2, so I'm going to keep that. And, that's just one example of what we can do if we just kind of zoom out a little bit. It looks very, very natural and quite shocking. And let's take it a step further. So I'm going to take this lasso tool once again, and this time I'm going to draw kind of a rectangular shape here, and I'm going to press the generative fill and type in hut. So what I'm trying to achieve is kind of like a African or straw built or clay built, something which fits the environment of where these elephants may be. So I'm going to press generate. There we have it. Photoshop has just absolutely eliminated every single designer who would have spent probably at least half an hour painting out these bushes and making them perfect. And Photoshop has literally done it in probably under 30 seconds. So we can once again kind of flicker through. We even have a bit of a tent here, and we have again kind of like a very weird building. I like this one in particular just because we can see the opening and the door. And if we zoom in a little bit, this looks this looks somewhat man-made, which is what we're going for, since we would assume that this photo would be taken somewhere in Africa, which would mean that there would be buildings such as this one, perhaps in the more rural areas. Now, let's have a look at a different example altogether. This was a quite nice way to describe and showcase how AI can function for photography. But what about if you're a commercial photographer and you visit restaurants and you take photos, and here and there you take a beautiful photo, but it's not entirely filled, and you have this dead space, and you need to fill this dead space with something else. This one might be somewhat shocking to some of you, okay? So we're going to take the elliptical marquee tool this time, and we're going to select our layer and draw what would seem like a plate, okay? And this is just a circle at the moment. There's nothing there. Now we're going to press generative fill, and we are going to type in restaurant food and press generate. Watch what happens. And there we have it. Literally, Photoshop has just created a dish out of thin air and placed it on our table. Now we can flicker through the different options so we can see, some of this food looks questionable to say the least. And some of the kind of the past results that I've had were a little bit better, but it's still just incredible how it manages to understand that the surface area is indeed flat and that we're looking from an elevation, from a kind of bird's eye or top-down view, and it places the plate in this way. So this is just one example. Let's have a look at a slightly different one, which may give us better results. So let's just go back here. And now what we're going to do is select the lasso tool one more time. And this time we're going to place a flower right in the middle of this table to kind of showcase the beauty of food and the experience, and just to give something completely different to this frame of what is just a table and some food. So I'm going to press generative fill, and I'm going to type in flower. Press generate, and let's have a look. And there we have it. Photoshop has literally placed some flowers on the table. Quality is questionable, but that's with AI. You don't always get the perfect result, but this one's great. I mean, and the beauty of this is that it's its own independent layer. It's not like Photoshop is maybe baking this in. It's still, you can move it around, you can remove the background from it and then place it in whatever position you want. But just for the example, we're going to keep it in its initial position, which is how it's blended its background, I guess. And there we have it. I love this feature because I used to work for a group of restaurants, and I would watch the photographers bring these items, physically and put them on the table. But now in the future, these things will become obsolete. You would just be able to place a dish on a table and generate any sort of environment that you want. The only thing you have to perhaps work on is just the lighting and the atmosphere that you want to create. But with design and editing, you can remove everything and start from scratch. But I do think it helps if the AI has some point of reference, particularly, some of these garnishes or lemons, or, how items are placed. It's going to give the AI something to think about and to consider before it actually places that item. So the next thing we are going to look at is architectural design, and how possibly in the future, landscapers, architects, and builders are going to use Photoshop to demonstrate to clients how the final result may look like on their property. So we have this kind of house in front of us in this image, and let's make a kind of assumption, or let's just make a hypothetical once again, that our client would like a cobblestone path leading from this entrance point where the stairs are all the way through to the end here. So what we can do is select our layer, select the lasso tool, and then start creating this path that would exist in this place, just like so. I'm going to make sure I'm also considering the perspective here. So it's going to naturally, become narrower and narrower. Now, this is still a bit of a kind of rough sketch, which is okay. We're just testing the AI here. We're not getting super accurate. But if we would just use the pen tool. And I'm going to press generative fill and type in cobblestone path. And let's see what happens. There we have it. Photoshop has literally added a cobblestone path. And we have different types of cobblestone. If you want it slightly raised, we can go for this one. If you want it more kind of landscaped into the grass, a little bit less elevated, we can also do that. Or we can have just a kind of slabbed design. And if we zoom into this, it's quite crazy how they've managed to pull this off. There's some blur. The resolution is not going to be as high as the original image because it needs to process this in real time. But as soon as we zoom out and we look at it like so, it's amazing. It's very, very realistic. And so the final example I want to showcase is cinematic. And the fact that we don't have to restrain ourselves to just everyday objects. We can go a little bit wild as well. And we can add items from our imagination that don't actually exist. So I'll just take the elliptical marquee tool here. I'm going to draw a circle, just like so, trying to find the center point of where this person is standing. And I am going to add a spaceship. How amazing is that? It just added a spaceship right above this person. Let's have a look at the different options Photoshop is providing for us. This looks like a kind of like a castle spaceship or a rocket of some sorts. And this one has what looks like a moon, a half moon behind it. Kind of looks like a toy a little bit. And this one is more of like a space robot. I think this first one looks pretty good. And if we zoom in here, we can also just consider the background and the lighting. It's obviously taking that into account and recreating some of the clouds even here. And, if we, for something which has a man looking up into the sky, this works really well. So that is pretty much generative AI and the different functions that it can provide for us as designers. It can remove items and everyday objects. It can extend images. It can manipulate photos. It can add a new story to our photographs and extend the original beauty of what we already propose to our clients, to our audience. And I just want to show you one final example, which is going to put all of this into perspective. And it's also going to make things a little bit scary, because if we can remove big items and we can remove them really well, we can also mess with people and we can create false memories of things that shouldn't actually exist in our realm of reality. So let's go back to this architectural photo here. I'm just, for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to remove this cobblestone path. And now let's just say we want to remove this house from existence altogether. So we're going to select the lasso tool. And we can see, actually, we have a little house here. So we just want to paint around this house. We want to maintain the integrity of this house, but we want to remove this one and the tree which stands here. So let's attempt to do that. We're going to start from this side like so. And then we're going to start painting. And now we're reaching this point where we have the second house. We're going to be a little bit more careful. And now we're going to paint on the top of the house. And we can also go all the way up here and like so. and that's it. Now we're going to press generative fill and type in the prompt remove. Press generate. There you go. Must I say anything more? I mean, it's gone. It doesn't exist. It's not the same reality anymore, okay? And yes, this could be improved on, and a few more clicks here and there, a few more prompts, and we have an image of house A, but not of house B. Quite scary, isn't it? And we should be quite mindful on how we use this, because we can mess with a lot of people's mind. So I think that sums up today's tutorial of generative AI. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you use it for your next projects. Please do have kind of a go at it and see what you can create, because as scary as this technology is going to benefit us designers for the better and make our workflow more creative. And it's not going to entirely eliminate what we as designers are already good at, because there are so many tools inside of Photoshop. There's so many different techniques and ways of combining digital assets to make one cohesive final product. And that's something AI is not going to understand on a human level. So don't worry about it too much. Just have a go and see what you can create. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video.